and welcome back. So let's talk about the science of emotional intelligence, how your brain creates those thoughts and those feelings and those emotions. And then I'm going to help you and show you or give you different ways that you can teach this to your children as well. Okay, so emotional intelligence, what is it? It simply means that you are intelligent about your emotions. Now, if you remember from previous videos, I always talk about emotions being a language that comes pre-programmed when you are born. It exists already. And so it's understanding that language and being intelligent about it, meaning that you understand why you have those emotions, where do they come from, what created them, why they were created, and what you can do with them. Because if you don't, you often get caught up by living in your emotional brain the whole time, and it can cause you a lot of distress. So let me explain to you how it all works. And I'm going to get a little bit scientific here, but I'm going to simplify it from you, and you'll find this really, really interesting. So basically, the brain has got different parts and different levels. And I'm just going to talk about a few of them. You've got the left side of the brain that controls the right side of the body. You've got the right side of the brain that controls the left side of the body. But then you've also got these different levels. And so you've got your survival brain, which is your first brain. And this is a brain that was, we all had hundreds and thousands of years ago. That was the brain that we were all born with. And the rest of the brain wasn't that developed yet. So we had the survival brain. And if you think about reptilians, they also call it a reptilian brain. So if you think about snakes and other reptiles, I can't even think of names now, some birds as well, they only have that part of the brain. They don't have the middle brain and they don't have the upper brain. But us human beings have got the survival or this reptilian brain. And then we've got the middle brain. And this is where our emotions and our memories are housed. So this is the part where, when we feel emotional, it's all, in the middle brain. And then we've got the top part of the brain, which is called the rational brain or the logical brain. Now, in human development, that is the newest part of the brain. So they've got different functions, and it's quite important for us to understand some of the functions, and I explain it all in my book. And for you to almost like sync the brain, you want to work from a whole brain perspective. So I'm going to explain to you how your emotions and your feelings are created in your brain. So first of all, when we experience life and all the experiences and events that happen, we experience that through our senses. So what we feel, what we see, what we taste, what we touch. We've also got intuition, which is very in tune with our feelings. It's almost like we can feel things through our body. It doesn't even have to go through the brain. We can just sense it in our intuition. And then when we experience something or see something, it comes in through those senses. It goes to the middle part of the brain where your emotional brain sits, and it's called the amygdala or the amygdala, as some people call it. And it's a tiny little almond-shaped gland, for lack of a better word, that sits just here above your ear. So you've got one on either side. So that information goes there. And then from that part, it takes 6 seconds to get to the top part of the brain where your rational brain sits, where your logical brain, where you're able to have foresight, hindsight, think before you act. All of that sits there. But in the emotional brain, if you don't allow those 6 seconds for the information to get to the logical brain, the rational brain, and you act out here, that's when we often have these emotional reactions. Now, what also sits in this part of the brain, as I said, are your memories. Now, most of us, what we do, we act out or react or say things or do things based on memories. So memories of what has happened in the past. So say, for instance, you had a bad experience. Maybe you were on a plane and the plane was a little bit bumpy, or there was bad weather and it really, really frightened you. Then what happens is when you get on a plane again, or before you get on a plane, you're already thinking, oh my gosh, is the same thing going to happen? Am I going to feel unsafe? How am I going to feel? So we react on that. And it's the same as if you're having an argument with your spouse or your child. So say, for instance, you had a really bad relationship with a previous partner they did something bad and it was their behavior. So, for instance, they could have been like very flirtatious with other people and there was nothing wrong with it. You didn't see anything wrong with it, but then they cheated on you. Now, you've left that relationship, you're in a new relationship, and you see your new partner, and they look like they're being all flirty or flirtatious with somebody, and immediately you react because your mind is going, hang on a sec, this is happening again. And because the mind's job is to keep you safe, you then react based on that memory because you're like, oh my goodness, this partner is going to cheat on me as well. However, if you wait 6 seconds and that information gets to your rational brain, you can go, hang on a sec, I can't treat this person the same as that person because they're two completely different people. I can't transfer those feelings or that fear from a past experience to a new experience. And that's what emotional intelligence is. It's about understanding this bit here. It's about the waiting and understanding what is going on. So, a good tip for you is to always remember to count to 10 before you react. And especially if you have an emotional reaction, if you feel that, because our emotions, they're so fast, they happen so quickly that we often feel them in our bodies before anything else, right? And we just want to react straight away. But if you just wait a second and take a breath and count to 10, then you can make a decision of how to act. But now coming back to how those emotions are created. So once again, you're seeing something happening, whether it's your partner flirting with somebody, whether it's a car accident, whether it's being on the plane, whatever's going on, that information comes through into the emotional brain. It takes 6 seconds to get here. Once it gets here, it creates a thought. The thought creates a feeling, and the feeling creates emotion. Now, the difference between feeling and emotion is very, very slight, but there is a difference. So, feeling is that stimulus. It's that just that gentle, sometimes not so gentle, but it's that stimulus that you feel, and the emotion is energy. So think about it. When you feel angry, right, you get this thought in your head and you're like, oh my gosh, this is making me feel really angry. You feel it in your body. You feel like this little stimulus that goes on. And then the next thing, this emotion, wow, it just comes out and you're angry and you either shout or you do something or you throw something or, and then that feeling, that emotion can actually escalate as well. So that's why you have frustration, and then you have anger, and then you have rage. They can kind of go up in intensity, but that intensity that you're feeling is emotion. The feeling is almost like the precursor of that emotion. So when we start getting that feeling, that is when we need to go, hang on, what's going on here? Because if you don't wait, then the emotion kicks in. But if you learn to wait by counting to 10 or walking away or taking a deep breath or going to do something else, you then allowing yourself to think about it and go, okay, I'm starting to feel angry. Why am I feeling angry? What am I going to do with this anger? Where does it come from? And like that example that I gave you earlier on, when I said it could be coming from a memory of the past when you were hurt, you can go, okay, that was then, this is now. So what am I going to do with that emotion? And then you can speak to your partner, or you can write it down, or you can let it go. You can make a choice. You can make a decision as what to do with that emotion. But emotions are so natural and feelings are so natural. And it's important for you to know that you are not your feelings. You are not your emotions. They are designed for a reason. And the reason is often, most of the times, is to keep us safe. It's also so we can enjoy life. And the uncomfortable emotions, I don't believe in there being negative emotions, because a lot of people talk about positive emotions and negative emotions. All emotions are good. There's just some that make you feel uncomfortable. But it's the uncomfortable ones that you want to pay attention to, because they are the ones that say, hang on a sec, there's something wrong here. There's something that I haven't resolved yet. There's something that I was hurt by in the past and I didn't heal from that. I didn't express that emotion. I didn't release that emotion. I didn't forgive my ex for doing that. Whatever the reason is, there's a message behind that emotion that comes up. So when you become intelligent about your emotions, you're almost looking at it and going, okay, what is this language? What is this emotion telling me? What is it I need to pay attention to? What do I need to do with this? But often we get hijacked when we don't allow that information to go from here to there. And then we get hijacked by that emotion and we act out and we get into a fight and we go crazy and we do silly things. Now, I want to tell you this. I must confess to you that you are not always going to get this right. I can promise you that because we are human beings. We came with these feelings, we came with these emotions, and especially if you haven't been taught from a really young age how to cope with them and how to deal with them and how to express them, there are going to be times that you are still going to get frustrated. You are going to get angry. You might still shout at your kid. You might still shout at your partner, the dog, whoever, because if you were raised in an environment where that was role model to you, where anger was handled in a certain way, hiding, spankings, shouting, whatever, it's almost like a natural response for you to do the same thing. Because when you see a parent doing something, it is more powerful than them telling you not to do it because it's like, hang on, I'm learning this. And especially in the first formative years, we learn more from our parents role modeling to us than teachers or parents telling us what to do because we're like, well, they're doing it. This is clearly the way to do it. So therefore, I'm going to do it. And it becomes a subconscious thing. It's not a conscious thing where you go, wake up one day and you go, I'm going to be angry or I'm going to shout or I'm going, no, it doesn't work that way. So that is why you can see it's so important to teach children from a really young age about their emotions and how to express them appropriately so that they don't hurt themselves, they don't hurt other people, and but that they can also understand the reason behind that strong emotion that they're feeling. Okay, so now let's talk about how you can teach this to your children and how you can help them. Now, you can already start, as I said, from a really young age. I like to teach children from the age of 4 because that's when the emotional brain kicks in. Until then, they're in survival brain. Everything is about survive, 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 eat, sleep, drink, everything is survival. And then the emotional brain kicks in at 4, and then the rational brain only kicks in at 24. So you've got 20 years of where a child or your child or the children that you're teaching or young adults that you're teaching, they operate from the emotional brain alone. They don't have rational thinking. They don't have logic. So you have got to be their logical brain. You, as the parent, you, as the teacher, has to be their logical brain because they don't have it. Everything is about survival and emotion, and mostly emotion. Okay. But coming back to children, so when children are already 2 years old and they start throwing those tantrums, when you start learning and showing them how to handle that appropriately, it's already going to become ingrained in them. So when a child throws a tantrum, it's usually because there's a huge rush of hormones into their body. Their brain is shifting, their mind is shifting, there's chemicals going on. They don't know why they're feeling what they're feeling, but they are becoming independent. It's a step to becoming independent. And that's why they start with going, I do that, no, I do that. Everything is about no, setting boundaries. It's meant to be that way. We're wired that way to become independent. And if you've watched my video on power struggles, you'll understand it a little bit more as well. If you haven't watched it, just check out. You'll see I've got a video on power struggles and parenting that will really help you. But basically, so, and then if they can't get their own way because they want to be independent, because their brains are designed, wired that way for them to become independent, they start throwing tantrums and they scream and they shout and they roll around on the floor and they do all sorts of things. Now, historically, and I know specifically in my era, and maybe the next era, it was all about, oh, just ignore them, punish them. Woo, the worst thing you can do. So you punish them for, you humiliate them, you shame them, you embarrass them. Horrible things how, children have been treated over the centuries and the decades. And so, and that's why I've got that whole thing about terrible twos and children are just brats. They're not brats. They can't help it. Their brains are wired that way. It's part of growing up. So what you can do at that age already, you can sit with them, you can show them, you can say to them, I can see you're frustrated. I can see you feel angry right now. It's okay. Let me help you. Show me what you want. Can I help you? And if they go, no, 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 and they just scream and they don't want you to get involved with them at all, just sit with them and say to them, okay, I'm just going to sit with you. When you're ready, I'm here to help you. Or when you're ready, would you like a cuddle? Or when you, if they say no, they don't want a cuddle. When you're ready, I'm here for a cuddle. Can sit on my lap, do whatever, but I'm just going to sit with you and allow them to process that emotion, to get that emotion out of their body. Because if you don't do this, it teaches them that what they're feeling is wrong and they're going to learn to suppress it. Now, when you learn to suppress your emotions from a really, really young age, it bubbles up and it bubbles up and it bubbles up. And then you get into teen years, and then your teenager doesn't trust you with their emotion. They, it goes into anger, it goes into rage, it goes into frustration, it goes into all sorts of things. So you really want to help children to express their emotion and show them that it's okay to feel what they feel. Because remember, all emotions are normal. Every single one of them, whether you understand them or not, they are normal and they are acceptable. They are completely acceptable because we all have emotions for different reasons. So you want to show them that what they're feeling, it's okay for them to feel that. But it's not always okay to act out in a certain way. And when I say in a certain way, by hurting themselves or by hurting somebody else. So if they act out by hitting you or hurting themselves, you then want to stop that, hold their hands and just say, I can see you angry. I can see you frustrated. It's okay, but it's not okay to hurt me. Or it's not okay to hurt yourself or to your sister or your brother or the dog or whatever it is, because you've got to learn to separate emotion from behavior. Behavior comes from not being understood and not knowing how to express emotions, but yet we judge behavior and we punish behavior because we don't understand what's underlying that behavior, where that is coming from. So you need to show them how to do that. It's okay to express this emotion. If you want to cry, if you want to scream, just go for it. But if they want to harm themselves or anybody else, that's when you go, no, that's not okay. All right, so you can do that from the age of 2 already. And you'll see that if you start doing it at the age of 2, that in the terrible threes, as they call them, the terrible 2s and the terrible 3s, the 3s won't be so bad. And then when they get to 4, my favorite age of children, their little personalities wake up and their emotional brain wakes up, and suddenly that clicks in. And then they're very, very direct and they're very assertive, and they also have now separated from the mother. They've become completely independent. Because this is another thing, and I'm sure you might have heard me saying this in a previous video, is that children actually don't see themselves as separate from the mother up until about the age of 2. You'll see even like some children, they look in a mirror and they're trying to see behind the mirror because and when they start doing that, then they're starting to separate themselves. So when they get to 4, they're now independent. They know that they're an independent person and it's like the little light has been switched on and they're curious and the personality comes out. But this is also where we can do a lot of damage with children, because that's when we start judging them and we start shutting them down, because sometimes they say things that may appear as inappropriate. Now, what do I mean by that? So a child will, for instance, look at another child or look at an adult and go, Mommy, Daddy, look at that fat man, or look at that fat boy or that fat girl. Now, for them, they're just describing the size of the person. And then we go, no, you can't say that. That's rude. So we start shutting them down when they're expressing, whereas we can rather say to them, I can see that they're bigger than normal people, but we don't really say fat. It can be seen as an ugly word or not nice way. It could be offensive. So you've got to start thinking about when your child is expressing themselves and their emotions, that it's not personal, it's not offensive, it's just their way of describing things. And sometimes children, when they're frustrated, they'll also say to a parent or teacher, I hate you, I don't like you, when they don't be offended by that either. It's just the way they feel right now in the moment. That's the only way that they can express it. And even that is okay, because it doesn't mean they really hate you. They hate the feeling of what they're feeling right now, whether you're standing in their way or they can't do something fun and they've got to go and bath or they've got to go and do homework or whatever. It's not a personal attack on you when a child says they hate you. It's a feeling that they're feeling. And what you can do is you can help them to find a different word. Okay, so you hate me. Is it because you're frustrated? Because I'm saying no? So give them the appropriate words that they can use based on what is going on. Now, a great way to do this is that, once again, in my book, and I'll also upload below this video, I'll upload a feeling list. I think I've got a feeling list somewhere. Print that out and stick it up somewhere and start learning the words, because if you don't know the words, you don't know how to express it, right? You can't tell somebody how you're feeling if you don't know how to label the words. So that's always step number one when you start teaching a child about emotions. And you can make it a fun experience. You can pick two emotions. There's 200 or so. I mean, it's close to 200 different words, and a lot of them are similar, but they have different levels of intensity. But you can pick like two words maybe a week or every couple of days, whatever suits you. And then you start learning the meaning of those words, but then you teach your children as well, and then include it in your daily language, your daily interaction. When they come home from school, you can say, what was your favorite part of the day? What was your worst part of the day? How did you feel at school today? They can tell you about their experiences. How did you feel about that? So, and start including those words you learn in the interactions you have with them, and remind them about the words. So it's a very good way of getting them to start becoming emotionally literate. Then the second thing I want to say to you as well is how you can explain all of this about the science of emotion. And honestly, children are clever. As I said, I've worked with children from the age of 4 and they get it. They're really, really clever. I mean, they're going to school in the UK at the age of 4 already. So don't underestimate a child when you explain this to them. But you can say to them, when they feel those strong emotions or those feelings, you can go, you know what? That's just emotion. It's just energy. It's just feelings. It's not you. It's just this language that you have that's trying to tell you something, or it's trying to tell me something. So you can explain it to them so that they can learn how to differentiate between themselves and these strong emotions that they feel. So, and I want to tell you a quick story. I remember when my grandson Tyler started school and he was 4 years old, and we went for a little forest walk, and it was just adorable. He loved school in the beginning. He absolutely loved it. And I said to him, did you learn anything new at school today? And he said, Grammy, I learned about bulbs. He says, do you know? He says, like a bulb is right like this. And underneath that, it's almost like a little lunchbox. He said, and all the nutrients in that bulb, that little lunchbox is what feeds the flower and the plants to grow. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. I mean, he actually taught me something. The way he taught it was just in such a beautiful way. So find ways to teach your child in an age-appropriate way of how they can relate, because just like that plant that has that, or the bulb underneath is the little lunchbox, you can say to them, you know what, we are people, and this is your face, and these are your arms and your hands and your legs and whatever. But then we've also got these emotions, and they're like this very strong energy. It makes us feel strong or it makes us feel weak, but that's not who you are. It's just like it's the secret language that is within us, and it tells us when something is wrong, or when something is good, or when something is fun, or when something is not fun. And then obviously, speaking to teenagers, speak to them like adults. They appreciate that when you actually talk to them like adults. Tweens, you can just take it down a tiny little notch from, how you would talk to teenagers, but explain to them. And also children love hearing about it. Oh, that's my bottom brain that did that. My reptilian brain was the one that became angry, and I wanted to fight, and I was feeling so threatened, if they got into a fight at school or whatever. They start referring to that. They go, oh, that was my bottom brain. Or they go, oh, my middle brain, was the one that made me feel sad, and I didn't know what was going on. And and I wanted to call mom because of whatever it is. Your child, and you know how to talk to them in an age appropriate way. And the last thing I want to say is that these are conversations that you can have with your adult children as well. And here's a really good tip for you, is that when your teenagers become like 16, 17, 18, start really treating them as adults and stop thinking that you've got to control everything that they do and be overbearing with them. Because, when they then become 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're now really getting into adulthood, a lot of parents still treat their adult children as children. And, aren't you cold? Put your jumper on, eat your food. Have you done this? We still tend to do that. And I remember I used to do that. And the one day my kids said to me, they were like, Mom, we're not little children anymore. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I should have thought about that. And I said to them, just remind me, because I've always been your mom. I've been your rational brain, your logical brain. I've been your protector because I raised them on my own. And so I'm in a habit of doing that and telling you what to do and talking to you the way I have. So if I do that, please stop me. I give you permission and say, Mom, remember, I'm not a little girl anymore. Or, Mom, I'm not a little boy anymore. Thank you for caring about me, but I know what to do. Or, I'd like to make my own choice. So you almost click in more into a cooperative way of raising your child. And with teenagers, especially, as I said, when they get to about 16, because up until 16, from about 11 until about 16, they're so hormonal. So they're not only dealing with the fact that they're working in the emotional brain the whole time, they also got their hormones, which makes their life so difficult, makes everybody's life difficult, and it's so uncomfortable. But when they get to about 16, it starts settling down. So click into more of a cooperative parenting way where you can decide together. And this is something you can even do with your younger children, where you say to them, do you want to do your homework before bath time or after bath time? Do you want to have a bath before or after dinner? So you give them a couple of choices, but you get them to cooperate and you help them to make choices themselves. Because when we are overbearing and we're always telling them what to do all the time, you're going to get these huge, big emotional reactions because we all don't want to be told what to do. And it's part of our wiring so that we can become independent, responsible adults one day. So remember, we're always raising adults, right? So they're children, but we're raising them to become independent, happy, contented, joyful, fulfilled adults. So always remember that. Right. I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions whatsoever, there's a link below this video. Join my free Facebook group and you can ask me as many questions as you like. I've also put a link below where you can join the membership, where you get additional benefits. You can get the whole course. There's accreditation. We've got a curriculum, and it's only $9.99 a month. It's really simple and easy to join and inexpensive and accessible to everybody. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you again next time. Bye for now.